Last year, Donald Trump promised he would end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. Last week, he said that it would not be resolved until he and Russian President Vladimir Putin could get together and hash it out in person. On Monday, the ground shifted again. After a 2-hour phone call with Putin, he said that the conditions of a peace deal could only be negotiated between Russia and Ukraine, and maybe with the help of the Pope. Still, the US president has not lost his sense of optimism about the prospect for peace, posting on social media that the combatants would immediately start negotiations for a ceasefire and an end to the war. That sentiment was somewhat at odds with the Russian view. Putin only said that his country is ready to work with Ukraine to craft a memorandum on a possible future peace agreement. Talks about memorandums and a possible future of peace hardly seems the kind of solid ground on which lasting deals can be quickly built. Putin again emphasized that any resolution would have to address the root causes of the war, which Russia has claimed in the past to be Ukraine's desire for closer ties to Europe. On Truth Social after the call, Trump said that Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire, adding that the conditions for that will be negotiated between the two parties. But there is a possibility that Trump's latest take on the war in Ukraine could be a sign that the US will ultimately abandon the negotiating table. Later on Monday, Trump said he would not step away from brokering talks between the two countries, but acknowledged that he had a red line in his head. Big egos involved, but I think something's going to happen, he said. And if it doesn't, I'll just back away and they'll have to keep going. Such a move, however, comes with its own set of questions and risks. If the US washes its hands of the war, as Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have also threatened, does it mean the US would also end any military and intelligence support for Ukraine? And if that is the case, then it may be a development that Russia, with its greater resources compared to a Ukraine cut off from American backing, would welcome. That prospect is enough to have Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky concerned. It's crucial for all of us that the United States does not distance itself from the talks and the pursuit of peace, he said on Monday after the Trump-Putin call. Trump's frantic peace brokering hints at what he really wants. Trump has expressed frustration with both Putin and Zelensky as efforts to resolve the 3-year-old conflict drag on. He accused the Ukrainian leader of gambling with World War III in an explosive meeting in February in the Oval Office and, in April, said he was very angry and pissed off at Putin after talks continued to stall. Putting aside Monday's rhetoric, it appears that Ukraine and Russia are set to continue some kind of talks, and talking in any form is progress after nearly 3 years of war. Still to be determined is whether the Russian team will be more than the low-level delegation that traveled to Istanbul to meet with the Ukrainians last Friday. Trump is holding out the promise of reduced sanctions on Russia, and new trade deals and economic investment, as the enticement that will move Putin toward a peace agreement. He mentioned that again in his post-call comments. Not discussed, on the other hand, were any negative consequences, such as new sanctions on Russian banking and energy exports. The US president last month warned that he would not tolerate Putin tapping me along and said that Russia should not target civilian areas. But yesterday, Russia launched its largest drone strike of the war on Ukrainian cities, and Monday's call between the two world leaders makes clear that any ceasefire or peace deal still seems well over the horizon.